welcome Dank Fan World. In today's video, I'm converting a totaled 2025 Ninja into a professional stunt bike while showing you guys all the essential parts needed to make a solid unit. Alright people, I'm gonna keep this thing fully transparent. It is a really chaotic week and it's only freaking Monday. We got all this wood here. I've been building the van out. I got all these old parts, more old parts under there, and more old parts right there. I've been hoarding all those boxes of parts for this exact moment, people. This is my new 2025 Ninja Zx6r. It is destroyed. The motor mount is snapped at the frame and the engine itself is actually broken too, but it still should be doable. And then the back part of the frame is smashed from the cage from a really hard crash. So this bike is totaled out. It's got 5,000 and some change miles, and I paid 3,500 bucks. But the plus side is, not only does it run, but we got a front end, people. Yahoo! But we have a front end. The last bike that I had, being a 2024 ZX6R, I kind of gave up on it because I could not find headlights to save my life. But we got the headlights, we got the fairings today, we got some broken fairings. So the main hard parts of this bike, especially like the gauge cluster, are all here. And we can just focus on stunting this thing out and possibly just keeping it naked depending on how the budget goes with fairing replacement and all that good stuff. Yeah, I'm doing laundry. I got a lot of crap going on. The garage is a mess. We got the workspace kind of clear so we can start tearing this thing apart. But I'm just so busy, I don't even have time to film me building this bike up just with all the other projects I got going on. But at least I wanted to show you guys what the bike looks like at ground zero when I got it. First step today is removing the ECU, and I'm gonna ship that out to No Limit for Motorsports and have them flash my ECU, and hopefully, very rare chance that I can get it back before this weekend and possibly start riding. Stay tuned people, this is gonna be a very epic build, and I've just been waiting for so long to get this thing. Well, things have kind of escalated quickly. Not my finest look, but this is the easiest way to install the new oil pan. So yeah, this is how we're doing it. Alright, I'm trying to vibe out and get this bike torn apart slash put some parts on that are essential. And I didn't really feel like filming, but I also want to do my part and show you guys what's going on. So this is one major thing that I've been doing to my bike since I've had one blown motor on these. This is an OEM stock oil pan. I just went ahead and pulled it off, and then I was like, hey, I should probably film this. When you're in a wheelie, this motor doesn't like to suck up oil into the engine at the angle with the curvature of this oil pan. What you're gonna do is use this instead, and you have an extra chamber off here in the back that this pump is gonna sit into. So the tricky part is trying to sit it in there. So I flipped the bike completely upside down so I could let gravity hold it in place versus fight me. Good morning people, day 2 building the 25 out. We went ahead and finished up with the oil pan yesterday, and then I flipped the bike back upright and threw it back on the lift. After that, went ahead and took off the airbox, and this is the back crankcase hose that usually hooks to the airbox. I removed that and installed a similar diameter hose, and it goes from the crankcase all the way to the front. And then usually I'll run it in the front fairing, but since I don't have any fairings on the bike right now, I did a smaller hose, and it goes to this plastic fitting right here, and then that goes into this breather filter. I'm doing the clean air mod. As far as the valve cover goes with these T's, you can either get block off plates to give you more room up here, or if you want to take the cheaper route like me, I'm just going to remove the tube that goes in the top part of the airbox and replace it with a nice little vacuum cap and a sleeve to hold it in there. So go ahead and tighten that down and you're good to go. But you can leave this plug right here plugged in. It's not bothering anything. And as for the airbox, all those tubes that usually come off, you're just gonna seal those up with some fittings or caps. There's 3 total. So basically when you're in a wheelie with this clean air mod, it's gonna stop the engine from suffocating itself with oil backing back into it. Very important to do on this bike and all the other stunt bikes. Next thing up is to gut this tip sensor And if you get a used bike, you can always smack it like this and hear it rattling inside. This is the pendulum rattling inside of the tip sensor. So you're gonna take these 2 screws out with some 8mm, it looks like. There's a little slit in the plastic housing. You can split the housing apart, circular pendulum in there, pop that out, close the housing back up, and keep it plugged in. So that way you don't throw any codes, but you don't actually have that pendulum anymore to shut the bike off when you're upside down. The tip sensor is good because it will keep your bike running if you're just dropping it real quick and picking it back up, but it's also good because sometimes these bikes malfunction when you're in a wheelie and it thinks that you flipped the bike, but you're still riding a wheelie and then it shuts itself off. So very important to have the tip sensor gutted as well. All right, I got that bitch split apart. Let's give her a little tug live on camera for you guys. Boom. This is your pendulum. You want to carefully remove it and seal everything back up. And then when you shake it, no rattling. It says up, so make sure it's still facing up. Just stick it back in its home. Tip over, sensor bypassed. As for the stock clutch, it comes with a 2-prong sensor in the back here. I'm going to be swapping it with my RSC clutch, and when you get your ECU flash on these new gens, you want to bypass the clutch sensor here. You can use a fuse and stick the fuse in there so it connects the sensors together. And twist the prongs the opposite direction, and then they'll slide into the slits. Went ahead and scrubbed the bike down a good bit with some polish. Cleaned off all the electrical, all the grease and stuff off the forks, the bugs and stuff. Alright, next up with the ECU flash, whether you have a servo buddy or not, if you're upgrading your exhaust, usually you'd want to put a servo buddy in. But with the ECU flash, it tells the bike that it does not need a servo buddy nor this servo motor. So you can remove that, and you have a lot more space for tools, but in my case I'll have the whole seat so my foot goes there. And next up we have some NDC rear sets. These are machined aluminum parts. As you can see, they're used from all my other builds. I just take them off and put them on the next bike. They hold up pretty well. But nothing really different as far as functionality, just the fact that they're machined aluminum versus cast aluminum like the OEM ones. I thought these were mint rear sets, right? And then I'm tugging on it right just a few minutes ago, and it's freaking broken right there. This dude pushed it into place whenever he sold it to me. Got my ass. For one small contribution on Dankwheelie.com, you can help Dank feed his fat cat and also supply stump parts for his stump bikes. Have a heart, do a wheelie. Next mandatory upgrade on my builds are the fans. You want to upgrade from this stock single fan to these dual R6 fans. Do not laugh at my shroud. I think it works better than just having the brackets, but we'll get to that later. So dual R6 fans with more power each versus a singular giant OEM one is going to require a bigger fuse to not blow. So here we have our fuse box underneath the clutch lever in the plastics. Fan fuse is going to be a 15 amp. Then you have a 30 amp spare in the corner there. We're going to swap that 15 amp out with the 30 since we're going to be doubling the fan power with the new fan setup. Grab our 30 spare, take out the stock 15, put the 15 in the spare, throw the 30 in the fan fuse. And if you did it correctly, this is how your fuses should look with the new fan fuse. 30 right there, 15 in the spare. Alright, next up on the repair list is this cover. And it's gonna mismatch. My bike's gonna look like a Franken bike because the older gen motor cover I have is silver and this is black. So here we go. All the tedious internal wiring updates and stuff like that for stunt riding is all done. So just to reiterate, remove the servo motor, won't need it with the flash. Got the tip sensor right here, install it back plugged in. Go ahead and remove all the tubes off your airbox, seal your airbox up, and replace it with a long crankcase vent hose and route it towards the front, behind your headlight, or above the radiator if you're going naked. Bypass your clutch sensor with a fuse and swap your fan fuse from a 15 to a 30. As far as the rest of the bike goes, everything else is going to stay plugged in. My builds, personally, I like to keep them as close to OEM as possible as far as the wiring and everything else goes. That way, if you ever have a problem, it's the closest to stock as it can be, and you can trace it down and fix it a lot easier. But yeah, we're pretty much done with all the internal stuff. Now it's just a matter of throwing the actual hard stump parts on. It's going to be the cage, but the other side of the frame is broken, so I don't want to risk it and mounting a cage to it. I'm going to wait until I get the new frame. So we're going to run no cage, keep the fairings off. I'll probably swap that silver fender to a black one that I have. And then we got to throw our white stunt tank on. I might wrap that to match the colors better. I'm gonna keep the wheels red for now until I get it powder coated, and then I'll think of a color scheme. Keep the stock subframe. I got a minty taillight, so I'm gonna swap it out with a broken one in case something happens. And then we have to melt the battery tray just a hair so we can throw the RSC subcage on, throw the NDC rear sets on. So yeah, it'll be a naked thrash bike until we get it all cleaned up. And since the fairings are pretty shot, I'm not in no rush to get it full fairing, but it would be nice to find a set of OEM plastics since I do have a minty headlight and fairing stay and everything else. Here's the pile of parts, the gas tank, all that good stuff. What I have to do is order a 64 tooth rear sprocket and then a 130 link chain. I get my chains off Amazon. I wanted to start on this radiator, show you guys the before and after. When you get your OEM new gen radiator, it's gonna have this foam. You're gonna have to peel that off. Gently sit in here. You can't really use these grommets. Basically just try to sit the radiator inside the cage, and if your radiator is pretty messed up already, it's gonna be fun, but this one's pretty minty. So if you ever want to make sure your fans are blowing the right way, basically you stick a piece of paper in front of your radiator and it should suck the paper up against the radiator. So imagine all that cool air sucking into your radiator and immediately going to your hot exhaust. This shroud right here allows it to catch the air and somewhat keep it locked into this little cubby right here before it pushes it out towards the exhaust. So you have more time to keep the cool air inside of your radiator cavity before it pushes out. So even though it's ugly, even if you get like 5% added air accumulation, it's better than nothing. Function over fashion, right? This is the OEM plug for your new gen fan, and you're just gonna splice in the 2 wires for the R6 fans into your cut plug. That way you can still utilize the OEM plug for the harness. Alright, it's pretty much done. I got one more bolt to put in, but see the clearance. See how close the fans are? Gimbal endpoint reach. One little happy chamber of keep your bike from blowing up -ism. One last thing I gotta do, drill some new holes to fit the overflow reservoir into the radiator. Alright, so we got the radiator cage on. Alright, next up we got the refurbished stunt rear sets, replacing the OEM. 3 bolts, you got the 2 mounting it to the frame, and then the one for the quick shifter. Day 3, people. I'm a little embarrassed to have clip-ons over dirt bars, so I did that off camera, putting these things on. They're super nice. I don't have actual tubes for them, so I'm just using like cut-off clip-on tubes. The stock front brake line doesn't actually reach, so I gotta figure that out. I was waiting to put the tank on and everything else because the last thing I have to do is figure out the ignition. This giant area that the ignition takes up makes the clutch cable pinch, so I'm gonna basically use a different triple tree and relocate the ignition. I was just waiting to get a word if the 24 ignitions were different than all the other years previously, which they're not, they're the same. So I can use a separate triple. I don't have to cut this ignition out. I don't feel like doing that right now. Plus it's minty, and I'm gonna relocate the key down here somewhere. Got some cool things like a little front sprocket cover. I need to relocate the rectifier since it's built into the fairings that I won't have. Rear sprocket. It's missing a tooth. Literally not much stuff left at all. Let's get to installing, people. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and put the tank on. I wanted you guys to be a part of it. I started to go ahead and put the tank on, and just the feeling of this bike finally coming together. It's like, man, I should probably film this. Try to do it one-handed. So we got the rectifier mounted on the fairing tab, and then everything else is kind of zip tied and neatly packed together here. Got the fuses I can check. Got a spot for my gauge cluster. Didn't do anything with the forks. The only thing I'm really gonna have to steal from Betty White is the handbrake setup. Not the bracket, but the calipers and the lines and the masters. I'd rather just snag off that bike while it's down getting repaired. So yeah, there is hope. I can ride tomorrow. It is Friday night, past midnight. We got the first top bolts threaded in, loose, but it won't go any further. I'll use the heat gun. Just aim it right at this area. So now our holes are all lined up. We finally got the bike pretty much assembled. I'm about to put some oil in it. I just finished off putting some distilled water in. We're gonna cycle that since it ran coolant. And then after a session or two, I'm gonna pop in some engine ice. It should be good to go. But as far as oil goes, we're going with 7100 Motul, the usual. Massive update. We found an ECU to borrow this weekend. This is the last piece that I could not find, but we got it. Big shout out to Bradley, local, for letting me borrow it. I traded him the passenger pegs off this bike and some other little parts, and went ahead and hooked it up. Let me hold this thing for the weekend to test out. And Monday, my new ECU will come and we'll give this back to him. So I'm gonna throw the ECU back in and then hook up the battery terminals last, and we'll give this bike its first startup. See if we did a good job. So I'm gonna flip the key for the first time. Cool, where we need to be. We have a stunt bike, a 2025 ZX6R for $3,500 with some spare parts slapped on it. But yeah, I'll see you guys at the lot. It's gonna be a fun birthday session. I want to make some sort of outro for you guys, so I just want to say thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys might have learned a thing or two about a stunt bike build and might have helped you guys in your build as well. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. I'm not gatekeeping any stunt secrets. I want to see everybody succeed. But yeah, that's all. Like always, keep it dang. Later! Oh my God. It's too fucking easy on this thing. Once you learn it on the old dinosaur, having the consistency and extra power just makes you unstoppable. Oh my God. This bike is the truth. I love my cat Nado.